reading The Courage of Sarah Noble by Alice Daglish. Now let's see. Chapter 6. Brands. The Indian children did come, again and again. Sarah soon lost all fear of them, and they of her. At first the children all looked alike to Sarah, then she began to know each one. Two of them she liked better than all the others. They were brother and sister, a tall, serious boy and a little girl with lively black eyes. Sometimes Sarah tried to read to them, but after the first time they did not listen. So Sarah tried teaching them words, pointing to the table, stool, fire. She would say the name slowly and carefully. Then the Indian children said, or tried to say, the words, shouting with laughter when their tongues could not find a way around the strange sounds. They, in turn, showed her where the wild strawberries grew, so she went out, built a basket with the berries, which were red like red jewels in the grass. When John Noble came home with a duck he had shot, or a fish caught in the river, he would find ripe berries waiting too. They traded with the Indians for corn and ground it in with the small mortar and pestle Thomas had brought in one of the saddlebags. Sarah made corn cakes with it, cooking them in the ashes, and all the time she thought of her mother's good bread, baked in the oven, if she had an oven. I need help to raise the loaves for the house, John Noble said. There's a tall Indian who has said he will help me. I cannot say his name, so I will call him Tall John. He speaks a few words of English. Father, Sarah said, the Indian children pointed to their houses and they want me to visit them. Should I go? John Noble did not answer at once. He sat with his hand in his hands, saying not a word. This was his daughter, and he had brought her to this wild place. Often and often he had wondered if he had done right, and what, after all, did he know about these strange people? Sarah waited for her father to speak. At last he said, Tall John has 2 children, Sarah. I think they are among those who come here. I would trust you to go to the house of Tall John. Oh, said Sarah, it is Tall John's children that I like. So Sarah went often to the house of Tall John and his wife. She could not say the long, long names of the children, so she called the boy Small John and the girl Mary after her mother. The Indian children called her Sarah, for that was a name easy to say. Sarah! 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 Their high, clear voices echoed up and down the valley as she played with them and learned their games. Sarah! 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 How do you think that Sarah knew that the children she liked were Tall John's children? Leave them in comments. Chapter 7. Keep up your courage. In the bowl of the year the house was almost finished. A little house, very small in the wilderness, and small, too, beside the great maple trees that looked down on it. The house was brown, and the trees had put on their finest scarlet and yellow. Sarah and her father, Tall John and Thomas all stood and looked at the house. The big chimney promised warm winter days and nights. Outside there was a wood pile, neatly cut and stacked. It's a good house, said John Noble. Good, said Tall John, who never used 2 words where one would do, even if he spoke in his own language. It is a beautiful house, said Sarah. When can we live in it? And when will my mother come, and Stephen, and Hannah? Her father did not answer her at once. He looked at Tall John. Tall John nodded. Then Sarah's father took both her hands in his and looked down into her eyes. Sarah, he said, you have been brave, and now you will have to be braver. I must go to fetch your mother and the children. It is too far for you to go, and it will be better if you stay here. Stay here? Alone? I am afraid. She heard herself say afraid, and it was the first time she had said the word out loud. I have lost my courage, said Sarah Noble. To be afraid and to be brave is the best courage of all, said her father. But you need not be afraid, and you will not be alone. Dry your tears, Sarah. Tall John and his squaw will take care of you. You mean, said Sarah, not quite believing the words, you mean I am to live with the Indians? That is what I mean, her father said. Does it seem very hard to you? Sarah thought it over. The Indian children were her friends. She loved Tall John and his squaw, but to stay with them, to live in their house while her father was away, that was quite another matter. And again, Sarah was afraid, but she knew that Thomas would be needed to carry goods when her father brought the family back. Thomas and other horses. Of course there would be no place for Sarah to ride. Next morning Sarah was very quiet as she stirred the mush for breakfast. Sarah, said her father, you will be safe with Tall John and his family. But, said Sarah, what if the Indians from the north come? Tall John is afraid of them. The Indians have not come from the north for a long time. You know the Indians on Garden Hill keep watch all the time. I would not leave you, Sarah, if I did not think it was safe. But to himself he said, am I doing right to leave her? There was worry in his mind. The forest was on the ground where Sarah stood, holding Tall John's hand to watch her father start on a journey. Her cloak was wrapped tightly around her. She was not saying anything, but her mind, always busy, was making pictures. Trees, dark trees, narrow paths through the forest, wolves, bears. Suppose her father never come back and she had to live with the Indians all her life. Now her father was mounting Thomas. Sarah patted the horse's nose. His long, solemn face seemed suddenly very dear to her. John Noble rode quickly away, turning once, twice, 3 times to wave to a very small girl in a red-brown cloak. Keep up your courage, Sarah Noble. Now he was farther away. The trees hid him, and he was out of sight. Keep up your courage, Sarah Noble. Sarah's fingers were cold in Tall John's hand, and the tears she had been holding back splashed in her cloak. Tall John swung her up on his shoulder. Then they went, with long strides, down the hill, across the river, to Tall John's house. Chapter 8. In the Indian House. The first night was the strangest. All day Sarah had played with the children. They did not speak in the same words, but somehow they understood each other. When they couldn't understand, it did not seem to matter. Friends have ways of speaking without words. But darkness came early, and Sarah found herself in the house with Tall John and his family. How she longed for her own family! The evening meal was not what Sarah was used to. The Indians ate with their hands, and they had no plates. Still, the meat tasted good, and Tall John's wife had cooked it. Sarah liked cooking, but there were times when she tired of it, so she ate the food and enjoyed it. When the bedtime came, Sarah opened the bag she had packed so neatly, the bag that had come all the way from home on the willing back of Thomas. The children watched eagerly. What magic was Sarah going to take out of the bag? But there was no magic, only a long, warm nightgown and a comb. The children watched, interested but puzzled, as Sarah put on her nightgown and gown. Their eyes never left her as she combed out her long hair. That long brown hair of Sarah's. It was like the silk on the corn in late summer. The children came near and touched it. Then Sarah knelt by the side of the low bed covered with furs, to say her prayers as she always did. She said them aloud as she had done when her father was there to listen. The tears came again, for it was a lonely business. God bless my father and my mother and my brothers and sisters. Make the baby strong and well. Keep my father safe, and bring him back to me. She stopped for a minute, partly because her voice was choked, but partly because she did not know if it was right to pray for a horse. Then she went on. and keep Tommy safe on the way, and keep me safe, and... Now she really had to stop and think. Was it right to pray for Indians? Did the Lord take care of Indians? She could only ask him and see. Please, God, if you take care of the Indians too, bless Tall John and his wife and Small John and Mary forever and ever. Amen. The children heard their names and looked at their father with a question in their eyes. She speaks with her great spirit, their father said, as we speak with our great spirit. Good, good, said Small John, who was like his father in not wasting words. Chapter 9. Night of Fear. October days were warm and sunny. The Indian women spread the corn out to dry. At night Sarah helped them to cover it carefully, so the heavy dew would not wet it. There were many things to do. Tall John's wife taught Sarah how to weave a basket, and because Sarah's clothes were stiff and heavy, the Indian women made her clothes of deerskin, such as the Indians wore when the days grew colder. She also made a pair of deerskin moccasins. Sarah sped both light and free. She walked softly as the Indian children did. Often she thought of her family. Were they on the way? Would Hannah and Margaret be afraid of wolves? Stephen would not be, and the baby was too young to know about the danger. There was nothing, she thought, to be afraid of here with Tall John and his family. But there was. The pleasant quiet days came to an end, and all at once Sarah felt that there was fear and disturbance in the air. More Indians kept watching and guarding Hill. The Indians from the north must be coming. The Sarah scarcely knew whether to sleep at night. Suppose, be tired from long days in the sun, she slept at last, always with the fold of her cloak caught in her hand. And before she slept, she said to herself, "Keep up your courage, Sarah Noble. Keep up your courage." Once in the night she wakened and listened. Tall John had told her, partly in words and partly by signs, that all along the great river there were hills like Garden Hill, where men kept watch. If the Indians from the north were coming, the word would be passed from hill to hill by calling, and the village would be ready. Sarah listened and listened. Once she seemed to hear a long, low wailing. Was this the signal? Were the Indians coming down from the north? She waited for the village to waken, but everything was still. In the darkness she could hear the even sleep breathing of Tall John and his wife, of Small John and Mary. "Why, it's nothing but a rope," said Sarah. Soon her heart beat quietly, and she, too, was breathing evenly in sleep. In the morning Tall John told her that there had been fear, but the danger had passed. The river villages were not berated. So forgetting all her fears of the night before, Sarah played with the other children. It was such a charming game they played in the warm sunshine, taking up all their moccasins and placed them in a row, then hid a pebble in one. Sarah was pleased when it came her turn to guess, and she guessed right. The pebble was in her own shoe. In the middle of the game she turned suddenly, feeling that someone was watching her. And it was her father. John Noble stood there, saying not a word. His eyes crinkled up at the corners the way they did when he was amused, and he said, "Sarah, I had thought you were one of the Indian children." "Father," said Sarah, and ran to him. "Has my mother come?" "We are all here now," said her father. "I had come to take you home, but, daughter, I think it would be well to put on your own clothes, or your mother will surely not know you." So Sarah put on her clothes, piece by stiff piece. She now thought of buttons and tiresome. And as for petticoats, the moccasins she kept on, for her feet refused to go into those heavy leather shoes. When she was ready to leave, she saw Tall John looking sadly at her. "You go, Sarah," he said. "I must," said Sarah. "My mother is here." Tall John said nothing, but swung Sarah up on his shoulder, as he had done many times 4. Chapter 10. Sarah Goes Home. Over the river they went, with Sarah riding on tall John's shoulder. Only once she looked back at the Indian house. They had been kind to her, but now she was going home. The words sounded so fine that she said them over and over to herself as tall John waded carefully through the water. Going home, going home, going home. But her mother knew her, tall and sun-browned. What baby Mabel knew her. Had Mabel grown? Was she stronger? She had been such a fretful, sickly baby. Now they were going up the hill and the brown log house was in sight. There was someone standing in the doorway, someone in a blue dress. Yes, it was her mother. It really and truly was Sarah's mother. And yes, she was holding the baby in her arms. Beside her was Stephen and Mary and Hannah and little Margaret. Sarah almost jumped from tall John's shoulder. Easy now, Sarah, her father said. You will be there soon enough. Hurry, tall John, hurry! Take longer steps. Hurry, tall John, my mother is waiting. Tall John, feeling the quivers of excitement that raced through Sarah's body, set her down. You go now, he said, my daughter. Then he turned and went back toward his own house, and Sarah walked swiftly and softly to her home. Her mother had put the baby on the ground. Wonder of wonders, Mabel was taking a few unsteady steps, holding her mother's hands. Sarah knelt and held out her arms, and the baby came into them. Sarah could feel the little body firm and strong. If the baby had taken the long journey earlier, it might not have been that way. Now Sarah's mother held them both close to her. Sarah, Sarah, how you have grown, child! How brown you are! And in the same breath, what are those outlandish things you are wearing on your bed? Now Sarah knew that she was home. It was a day of happiness and a work-ordered family. There were goods to be unpacked and places to be found for them. Thomas had brought Sarah's own little stool. She carried it at once to the fireplace. Mother, she said, also almost afraid to ask the question, did you bring Arabella, or was there no room for her? She's here, her mother said. We could not leave her behind. Though, to be sure, I thought you might have outgrown her, and she might be for Margaret. Arabella is my child, said Sarah, and I have not outgrown her. Chapter 11. Night in the log house. In the evening, when the baby and Margaret were asleep, Sarah, her mother and father, and the older children sat by the fire. It was warm and cozy in the little house. I cannot think, her mother said, how your father could leave you alone with those savages. I had words with him when he came. But they are not savages, Sarah said. They are our friends, and tall John's wife takes good care of her children. Indeed, said John Noble, that is true, and when I came back I found Sarah as clean and well dressed when I left her. Tall John's wife is almost as careful as you, Mary. Sarah's mother did not believe a word of it. That she would have to see for herself. If she could even bring herself to look into one of those queer wigwams. No Indian mother would be as good a mother as she was, and certainly not as good as a housekeeper. I must put Arabella to bed, said Sarah. They could hear her talking to the door. Do not be afraid, Arabella, she said. It is safe here. These Indians are our friends, and they will tell us if the Indians from the north are coming. Sleep well, my dear. Keep up your courage, Arabella. Keep up your courage. Sarah's father smiled at her mother. It is good, he said, to see that Sarah is a little girl again. She has had, in these months, to be too much of a woman. Sarah, hearing, came back. I am not a little girl now, she said, stretching to her full height. See, I am tall, and I am almost 9 years old, nearly a woman. And so you are, her mother told her. When I am a grown woman, Sarah said, I shall be a mother and have 12 children. And maybe, she added, I will be a school teacher. I taught the Indian children. We shall see, her mother said. But if you are to be a teacher, you will have to start again with your reading and writing. And, Sarah, it is time for bed. There had been nights when Sarah had not liked to hear the words time for bed. Now she loved the sound of her mother's voice saying them. That night Sarah slept warm under the quilts. On a peg nearby hung her cloak, and she did not need it. She had kept up her courage, and it was something that would be always with her, always, even when the cloak was all worn out. Tonight the pictures in her mind was comfortable ones. Home, family, the fireside, and a door securely fastened. The light from the fire made pleasant patterns in the darkness. Sarah lay quietly, and the wind in the trees sang her to sleep. Guys, this is the end of The Courage of Sarah novel. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and push the alarm button. Bye bye!